breaking through walls and wreaking havoc in the multiverse. Here's your look at the new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Infinite Crisis Superboy Prime. An alternate reality version of Superman, Superboy Prime, comes from an Earth where the DC superheroes and supervillains were fictional characters until the day his powers were activated and he became the world's sole superhuman. But after his planet was destroyed in the Crisis on Infinite Earths, he became unhinged over time and eventually clashed with the superheroes in the main DC universe. In the Infinite Crisis event, ultimately Superboy Prime was defeated and imprisoned in the Source Wall, the barrier that surrounds the universe, only to break free when it was destroyed years later. However, when another crisis threatened all of reality, Superboy Prime proved himself a hero once again and helped save the DC multiverse. Before we start looking at Superboy, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that kindly provided this sample of the brand new Infinite Crisis Superboy from the DC Multiverse line. To get some size comparisons out of the way, it would probably make some sense to compare him along with the Superman. So I'm going to bring in the Superman with that angry look on his face. It always seems to be my go-to Superman as of late. And also for some size comparisons, let's bring in the recently looked at Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor might be of my top 5 favorite DC Multiverse figures right now. As it stands, certainly you can see when you're looking at the characters that Superboy Prime is roughly about the same height and build as the two figures on either side of him. For accessories, the figure comes included with a clear flight display stand, as well as a trading card that we'll have a look at first. The trading card, it seems consistent lately that we are getting figure photography rather than pulling it from the page, in this case of Infinite Crisis. I've now gotten used to more the idea that we are getting these trading cards with figure photography. And to be fair, actually, the figure photography is really good on these. Not only is the lighting really good, but it does show the figure rather nicely. Every once in a while, though, I do like the idea of them using the source material, like an actual illustration or panel pulled from the comics. But still, these aren't bad, and at least they're nice little trading cards. We can flip it around to the back, and it tells you that the real name is Kal-El Clark Kent adoptive name, as well as a very lengthy paragraph read. Same read-up that I actually used at the beginning of this review. I'll go ahead and add this to the rest of my trading cards. I've been collecting through all these DC Multiverse figures as of late. We've actually done a whole bunch of them. Now, the figure also comes included with a clear flight display stand. Same display stand that we've gotten with several other DC Multiverse figures. Generally, they're always going to be characters that are going to be put in flight poses. And of course, when it comes to Superboy Prime, I would like to put him in a flight pose. Now, the thing about the display stands, it comes in 2 parts. I've just attached them together right now for this review, but you can easily just put your thumb against it and slide it out from the track. You got the DC logo down below, one singular peg that technically you could really just attach to the figure. Just attach it to the bottom of his feet. The peg will go into the supplied holes on the bottoms of his feet. And really, yeah, as a serviceable display stand without this, you can easily just use that as a regular stand. But I think, though, if you're going to be a little more interesting of a pose myself, I'd rather make use of the neck. And then for that, we're just going to detach the figure once again, twist it off the peg, put it right there. And you're going to then take this, slide the post straight through the track, and snap it into place. From there, you have the adjustment on the top where you can move this down if you want to have him more in a flight pose. Or if you want to have him levitating, you can just bring that up. And then these open and close. So we can go ahead and fit this around Superboy Prime. For this, it's going to involve me lifting up the cape and just snaps it around his torso. His torso is pretty thick, though, especially like this area of his body. So you sort of want to get it above that, but you want to get it below the orange hose that he has running across the body. He actually has a lot of it. And you can have Superboy Prime levitating. Yes, I know it's not the most exciting of poses. Leave it with me, though. We'll come up with something a little bit more interesting at the end of this review. But it's just at least to show you that they come included with flight stands. I like the fact that they include that. Let's go ahead and take that off, put that to the side. And let's get a closer look at Superboy Prime. Now, for me, this came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting Superboy Prime to be of the characters that they were going to be releasing as of late. And I have to say, I'm really impressed. I loved Superboy Prime in the Infinite Crisis run. And I got to say, though, as an actual figure, that's a really good head sculpt. Even though it is a younger Superman, sure, I might even just say it's one of the better Superman head sculpts that we've gotten from the DC Universe, DC Multiverse line. I've noticed really that DC Multiverse, McFarlane's team responsible for it, they've really upped their game, not only on the sculpting, but also the paint on these figures too. Like the head sculpts seem to continue to get better and better and better. And easily I would feel like this is one of the better Superman head sculpts. I almost feel like I almost want to yank this off the neck. I'm not going to do it. I'm tempted though. Yank this head sculpt off and replace it with one of my other Supermans, because I just think the head sculpt is too good. Maybe we may get a similar type of head sculpt like this with a future Superman figure, but I really think this is like setting the bar pretty high with future Superman standalone figures. Now, under all this, he would normally have had just a regular Superman outfit. Then he adds the additional armor over top of it, which consists of the shoulder pads, the additional armor piece that gives him the collar. And it does have some nice sculpting going for it, some little riveted points. The raised Superman emblem, which actually is not just simply painted. They've sculpted it so that the S is raised from the black that's underneath it. One of the things, of course, the calling cards for Superboy Prime is he does have all these additional hoses. He's got the hoses that run across his shoulders, but primarily they're attaching things like his arms to the top of his shoulders, like the torso area. And especially when it comes to his legs, he's got these really long reaching hoses that attach from the top of his torso to the lower area of his boots as well. It's a bit jarring, but if you know the character, I mean, this is sort of what he looks like in the comics. Really, with the longest ones being these ones. These are the ones you're going to have to be careful of when it comes to the articulation on the figure. But as you can already see, they give you enough clearance, really, enough of a reach of hose that you can easily still bend the knees, move the legs forward and back. I was worried, really, when I saw first images of this guy's surface online, that I thought the hoses, especially for the legs, were going to be way too short, and it would have limited what you would be able to do with the legs. But as you can even see, you can do a Van Damme splits with Superboy Prime, and the hose has no problems. It doesn't look like it's going to ever run the risk of breaking. We can spin the figure around, and on the back, it's got a pretty good-looking cape, slightly swayed off to the side. It's making use of a softer plastic, and we can lift that up as well, just to see, first of all, how soft that plastic is, but also see the detailing, the additional hose that he has on the back here. I don't know if hose would be the technical term I would want to use, but it's the best way to describe these orange tubes that he has connecting to different parts of his body. The lower underoos, by the way, are softer plastic, while the top end of him is more of a denser, harder plastic. Oh, I just love that head sculpt, though. Easily, and it's so funny to me to say this because it's a younger Superman, but it's easily one of the best Superman head sculpts that we've gotten from the DC Multiverse line so far. I think they've really raised the bar with this guy. With that being said, gonna stay on target, stay focused for the rest of this review. For the articulation on this guy, now his head rotates all the way around. It hinges not only up, but also down as well. You can also move it back and forth. I did notice, though, when it came to his neck, that his neck is slightly a different shade of coloring than the more lighter, fair skin that he has for his face. But at least he does have the higher collar, so it does sort of cast a shadow onto his neck and kind of give you the idea that it would be a little bit darker anyways than his face. As for his arms, now his arms come up, and I actually would have thought that the shoulder pads would have been attached to here, because that usually seems to be the case where they do it for most DC Multiverse figures. In actual fact, the shoulder pads are attached to the top of his torso. So when it comes to really moving his arms, you don't even have to worry about them. You can easily move his arms back and forth out. And again, it seems like they've given you enough length of hose that you can attach, well, the way it's attached, you can still easily bend the elbow, utilizing that double hinge on the elbow there. He does also have the hands that independently rotate, not only this hand here, but also this hand here. Kind of would have liked if this guy could have come with some other swappable hands, maybe closed fists, for example, as opposed to just giving him the relaxed hands. Still just a minor complaint. Upper torso, or main torso, I suppose, is on a ball joint. While you do rock the torso back a little bit, you may notice there's a gap that develops right between the lower underoos and the mid-abdomen area of his body. Generally, I would like to keep the torso, I think, more leveled like this, because again, as you rock it back, you're going to see, yeah, there's a little bit of a gap that develops between this and this down here. Still, it allows the torso to go back and forth this way, this way. He seems to have more of a range than most of the DC Multiverse figures that we've looked at thus far. Then, of course, for the legs, we've already talked about the fact of how much mileage those tubes have given the legs. You can bring the legs at a full splits. You can bring them forward. And, yeah, you can guess it. You can bring them back. There's a swivel at the top. Very mild swivel. And again, this is all softer plastic. Double hinge on the knee. When it comes to his boots, the boots don't seem to rotate. They seem pretty affixed to the lower leg. And then when it comes to his feet, you can move the feet back and forth, but not by much. You can ankle pivot them, sure. But when it comes to bringing the legs, say if you want to have them in a flight pose, they seem to be kind of hung up on things. And it might be the fact that when you look at the back of the boot here, there's this little bit of plastic right here that I think prevents the ankles, or at least the feet, from coming down all the way. It would have been nice if they had made just a little bit of a spacing there that you'd be able to bring then the feet down, especially if you're going to want to have them in a flight pose. But at least he does have an ankle pivot, and it's certainly, at least, he still also has toe articulation as well. You may not be a big fan. I don't want to certainly speak for everybody, but let's just say you're not a big fan of this costume. Maybe you would have preferred just a regular suited Superman. I personally have liked the design of Superboy Prime's costume with all the outrageous hosing that he has all over the place. And again, admittingly, I think it's definitely one of the best, if not the best, Superman head sculpt that we've gotten from the DC Multiverse line from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. Here on this channel, I've been looking at the DC Multiverse brand from McFarlane Toys since its very first wave. And I gotta tell you, I've noticed a real considerable improvement with each of the figures and subsequent waves that the company has churned out. I guess then it's no surprise that some of my favorite DC Multiverse figures of the entire brand has been Power Suit Lex Luthor, has been Lobo, has been Infinite Crisis Superboy Prime. I mean, the head sculpts on these figures, not to mention the paint that they're putting onto these pieces, are some of the best that we've gotten from this entire brand of DC Multiverse. I get the idea. Not everybody's going to like the design of Infinite Crisis Superboy Prime's costume. All those additional hoses might be a little off-putting, but for me, like, that head sculpt easily is one of the best Superman head sculpts that we've gotten, so much so, I'm almost considering getting another one of the Superboy Primes and maybe seeing if I could take the head sculpt off of Prime here and replace it with the body of a regular Superman. Because I really think, like, that head sculpt is one of the best. It kind of reminds me of the Ruby Spears Superman, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I like it so much. The colors on this guy are vibrant, and the thing that I was worried about before opening this guy up of his plastic prison, I thought that the hoses wouldn't be long enough when it came to the articulation. It would be limiting things on the figure, but quite the contrary. McFarlane Toys, the team of McFarlane Toys, allotted enough length of those hoses that you can easily then move the arms out, forward and back, and you can do the exact same thing with the legs. Not everybody's cup of tea, no, but I definitely would think if you guys are a big fan of the DC Multiverse brand and you want to get yourself a nice looking Superman, get your hands on the Superboy Prime from Infinite Crisis. Again, a big thank you to the folks over at McFarlane Toys that provided the sample of Superboy Prime that we could have a look at in this review. Let me know what you guys think of the figure down below in the comments section. And hey now, if you guys are new to this channel and enjoying the content you're seeing, hit that subscribe button down below, turn the bell notification on, and keep your peepers peeled. Yes, please, if you do. Because there are definitely going to be a lot more DC Multiverse reviews coming your way in the not-so-distant future. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.